Hi, welcome back to today's episode of Exploring Politics. Today we bring you a special episode discussing the upcoming election. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Today, as I previously said, we have a special episode. We only have two panelists with us, but we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of the upcoming election. First, we will go to Dezlen Long. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dezlen Long. I'm a sophomore history and political science double major here at LaSalle University, and I will be talking about the opioid crisis here in Philadelphia.
Thank you. Jessica, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Jessica Perez-Salinas, and I am a double major in international relations and Spanish, and I will be discussing the final stops on the Harris and Trump campaigns.
All right, thank you. Well, first we are going to go to Dez's issue. On the local level, we are going to discuss the opioid crisis in Philadelphia. Des, would you like to just give us a brief rundown of what's going on there?
Of course. So back in May, Mayor Sherelle Parker of Philadelphia instituted a policy in which her administration would basically go through Kensington Ave, part of Kensington Ave, I should say, and clear out the encampments full of homeless people and those who were addicted to drugs such as opioids and fentanyl. Now, at the time, residents worried that this would not be a permanent solve to the ongoing drug crisis in Philadelphia, and they also feared that this clearing out of the encampment would basically push these problems into other parts of the city. And now it appears that their fears have been realized. In the past few weeks, it appears that the drug crisis in Philly has been getting even worse, so much so that the city government had to update their drug policy on their website to combat this. And these updates included giving treatment to those who are incarcerated as well, to ensure that they are able to be effectively driven off of these drugs. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something that I care for a lot. I'm a lifelong resident of Philadelphia, and this is a beautiful city, I believe. And so we want to ensure that it continues to be beautiful and that the people who live here are able to get the help that they need.
Got it. Yeah, thank you for giving us that rundown. Now, I don't know what your views are personally on what do you think the solution would be, ideally here?
You know, Peter, that is a very, very difficult topic because there is no one-size-fits-all solution to this circumstance. I mean, some could argue, oh, we just throw them in prison, let them sit there and think about what they have to do. They're breaking the law. You know, this is what the punishment that criminals have in this country.
Yeah, the more conservative kind of.
Exactly. Yes, the more conservative stance. And while there are parts of that stance that I say agree with, say that maybe throwing these people not into prison for years and years and years, but into a place long enough that they can be weaned off of these drugs, because clearly rehab is not an option. I mean, many of these people who are out there on the streets, they have gone to rehab over and over and over again. Yet. Exactly. And so, I mean, it's like, what else are we going to do? I don't want prison to be the last option for these people who clearly have a problem, but if it's going to help make sure that they are able to go cold turkey, if you will, and kill their addiction head on, to make sure that they don't want to do it, so we're going to force them to do it, almost.
Got it. Yeah, now, Jess, what do you think about all this?
I can definitely say I'm not one of the people that usually believes that prison is always the answer. I think there's definitely methods of rehabilitation. You know, trying to cut cold turkey, I do believe that's very effective. But I think what's important about this crisis is that it really highlights a lot of the issues in Philadelphia, which is poverty, mental illness, you know, and drugs. And it really puts it all together, and it really forces people to visualize it and see it and realize that it's causing a big issue to our communities, especially the communities that are affected by these issues.
Yeah, no, I think that there are a lot of solutions that are already being attempted with the safe injection sites that are around the city. When they cleared people out, they were trying to get them to go to rehab. A lot of the people have went to rehab, and it hasn't exactly worked for all of them. So, but they're also on the other side, I think if they are to go to prison, a lot of people who go to prison for crimes like this end up relapsing on it, or they end up, the recidivism rate, I'm sure, is pretty high on this. So if they are sent to prison, I think there should be a very conscious effort of making sure that they don't just end up unable to get a job, broke, and they turn back to drugs. I think it's very important that the goal is rehabilitation, regardless of whether that's through rehab centers, safe injection sites, or if it does, unfortunately, end up being prison. Do you have any final thoughts on that, Des?
Yeah, and that's why I said that I don't think we should be throwing these people into jails for years and years on end. And like I mentioned, the Sherelle Parker administration, they are introducing these plans and these policies in the prison for these people who are already there and suffering from these drug crises, where they are being given medication that will help wean them off of their opioid addictions.
Right.
But in regards to safe injection sites, I understand the purpose of it, to make sure that these people can be able to safely do the drugs and make sure they're having clean needles and everything. But to me, I feel like we're just inhibiting the crime. I mean, we're just saying, you know, it's okay for you to keep doing drugs and breaking the law, but we're just going to give it to you ourselves. That way it's okay. Yeah,
I mean, I think it does ultimately have to be a multi-pronged approach for anything to work ever, really. You always have to cover all the bases. Every issue is nuanced, and you have to kind of cover it holistically. And speaking on that note, we are now going to move to our second issue. Jess, would you like to introduce your topic?
Hello, I will be talking about the final stops on the Harris and Trump campaigns. So as many of you may have seen, this past weekend, they both made very significant stops in PA, one of the most significant swing states. And so Trump visited a McDonald's in suburban PA, and you know, it was a really interesting photo op where he was able to serve a couple of customers that were checked before entering. And Harris visited a Philadelphian deli that's very famous for having visits from other presidents, including former President Barack Obama. And so what is the purpose of these trips? They're going to be visiting multiple states, but particularly the swing states, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, and PA. These states will determine the election, and it is very important for them to be able to call out and reach out to the final bit of undecided voters. And these voters can be anywhere from Republicans that do not align with Trump, suburban older women, educated young women, Black and brown male voters. All of these groups are integral to the final outcome of this election. And it is important that they are able to target each of these groups and talk about how they can appeal to these groups, because they will not be able to appeal to all of them, but they will be able to at least make a difference in that 1%, because that 1% will make a very huge difference in the election.
Yeah, that makes sense. I always think with these tours, and specifically with Kamala going to a deli and Trump going to a McDonald's, I'm always questioning what exactly is it doing? Like, you go to a McDonald's and you work there, but like ultimately, what is that? Like, what is is he trying to appeal to people who like McDonald's? Is he trying to appeal to the working class, the people that work there? With Kamala going to the deli, is she trying to appeal to Philadelphians? I think she already has Philadelphia in the bag, let's be honest. City always goes blue. Most urban areas do. So what do these visits, what are they trying to do on a higher level? Because they are stops on their tour, and I think they wouldn't choose them if there wasn't a reason to. So Des, do you have any ideas as to what they mean?
I just think it's all performative, man. I mean, like, I agree with everything that you're saying. It's like, if they really wanted to try to get our vote, they would be going to the nitty-gritty areas of the city, trying to say, hey, this is what I want to do to help you all. I understand you've been having some problems. This is what I want to do. Stopping at a deli and McDonald's, especially the McDonald's was out in Feasterville, PA, which is right outside of Philly, but
it's a little more contested than Philly, so I feel like
yeah. But I'm just saying, like, they're performative actions by these politicians who they want to say, all right, we want to get your vote. See, we're hip. We know what all you guys like here, and they say, oh, we know you like to go to that deli and get a cheesesteak with salt, pepper, ketchup. Like, they know what people like, and they're trying to appeal to that. And I think it's just, to me, it feels disingenuous. I don't know if either of you agree with me on that, but it just feels like we don't care about your problems. We just want to show you that we want to get your vote in this election.
I think you might be right about that. Jess, do you have any thoughts on that?
I definitely agree that it feels very disingenuous and performative. specifically about the McDonald's, or McDonald's as Trump calls it. It's the purpose for that visit was because Kamala Harris has stated that she used to work at McDonald's in her college years, but also McDonald's is very integral to the American workforce, so it's targeting the working class.
Right.
According to McDonald's, 1 in 8 Americans has worked at McDonald's at one point in their life.
Yeah, that definitely does make a lot of sense. I just think with all of this, you know, there's a pretty high possibility. I mean, people who are very politically active, they want to hear about policy, they have already made up their minds. So I think these stops on the tours where they're hitting just local, recognizable, common experiences that like a large amount of people can relate to or understand is going for the group of people who aren't already decided. They don't care too much. I mean, they care about policy. Everyone does in some way, but it's not their foremost thought. So it kind of makes sense to just hit what people recognize and go, I know that. I might vote for that guy because he stopped there or she stopped there. But on that note, we are going to go to a quick break, and we will be right back to discuss the greater goings-on with this upcoming election. Stay tuned.
Making just one connection during recovery from mental and substance use disorders can put the strength of family and community behind you. We're all connected, offering encouragement, support, and hope. Join the Voices for Recovery. Strengthen families and communities.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
If you get a phone call, do not talk to the person.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
Just hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call the Senior Medicare Patrol.
If you suspect Medicare fraud, contact the Senior Medicare Patrol in your state.
We live in a country that incarcerates its own people more than any other nation in the world.
The individual can age out of crime. He or she, 9 times out of 10, is no longer thinking like he or she once thought when they were 18. This is a good time to have a second look for everyone. We have 50 years of data that proves to us emphatically that the old way of doing things no longer works.
Hello, welcome back. We are now going to enter our special discussion for this episode, focusing on the upcoming election. So I wanted to use this segment here to just focus on any predictions that we might have, any things that we might want to focus on, important battleground states that are contested at the moment, or issues that we might find to be particularly important in deciding the outcome. So first off, do any of you have any focuses that you just want to point out?
I think as PA, I think it's very interesting that this election has had less Democratic voters registered, and that could mean something significant for the election, that's Democratic voters. But there's also been an increase of independent or third-party voters. So who are those people going to be voting for?
Yeah, I think in recent years we've seen in the past probably two elections, we've seen a lot of people who are doing like lesser evil voting. They're voting not so much because they love the candidate, but because they like that candidate a lot more than they like the other one. Now, I think that does lead to, as time goes on, an increase in independent registered voters, as I think the Democratic Party is kind of shifting away from a lot of people, right? The Republicans are absolutely shifting away from the traditional Republican view of a couple years ago, with Trump being far more radical. So I think we are going to see, with a lot of previous years, we could get down predictions pretty well with just where Democrats are registered and where Republicans are registered. But I think this is going to be a lot more last minute, where it's very up in the air until the end. It's going to be very contested. But I think, unlike the last couple of years where we saw the Democratic candidate favored by a long lead and then that lead fell, I think we might honestly see the other way around this time around. So, Des, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I think it's just becoming increasingly clear that people are getting fed up with the Democratic Party. I mean, if you go out into the street, any city, not even just Philly, you can go to any city and ask someone what's going on, they'll tell you, under Joe Biden's presidency, under the Democratic leadership, we've seen gas prices go up, we've seen eggs go, we've seen all these different things go up and affect everyday lives in America as Americans. And while it may not be entirely the Democratic people's fault, I think that because they are the party that's in power, people need someone to blame. And the party that is in power gets blamed. For example, look at the French Revolution. King Louis and all his cronies, they were the ones in power. They were the ones that got blamed, and they were the ones that were put on the guillotine. So people are losing more and more faith in the Democratic Party. But I think on the converse side, people are also losing faith in the Republican Party as well. And this goes back to the independent voters you were talking about. Because to them, the Democratic Party doesn't get things done, but the Republican Party is doing too much. They're becoming way too radical, way too far right for the average voter in the middle. And so I think they're just getting fed up of having to choose between, well, I don't like this party, and I don't like this party. They're both trying to screw me over, so I just don't want to vote for either of them.
Yeah, I think we do see a lot of that. A majority of the discourse I see around the upcoming election is people who aren't interested in voting for either candidate, more so than the previous election or the election before that. Most people weren't exactly a big fan of Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, but they were like open to the idea, so they voted. But now we know what Donald Trump is for, and now he is 8 years older than he was back then. And he is getting up in age to where Joe Biden was when people were saying that he is too old to be running for president. So I think that there is a large shot that we see lower election turnout than previous years, but also with all of the anxiety around this upcoming election, I think there's a high shot that it also could be well above that. I don't think we'll know until all the votes are fully counted. I think that just like the past two elections, there will be a lot of contests from either side to results. I think that we might see something similar to January 6th. I'm hoping not, but as Republicans have only gotten more radical, as the Democrats are becoming more anxious for this upcoming election, I think that the problems that we are seeing with divisiveness in this election in particular and the previous ones, I don't think this is something that goes away after November 6th. I think that we are going to see these problems in future elections in the next 4 years. Do any of you have anything to add there or ideas about that?
Yeah, I think it is very concerning that, it could be a real possibility that there's violence or uproar after the election, depending on who wins. I know I just recently read an article that Kamala Harris said that her team is prepared in case Trump early calls the election, so before votes are even fully counted. And it used to be a time where people or candidates could agree like, hey, I lost this election, I give you the win, thank you. Al Gore versus Bush, we saw that happen. What do we see now? The election was a fraud, the election was tampered with, there's something wrong with this election.
Well, I think that I actually talked about this in one of my poli-sci classes. We see this almost shift, this flip-flop of parties saying, oh, the election was tampered with, the election was rigged and everything like that. I mean, look all the way back in 2016 when Hillary and Trump went.
College.
The Electoral College. They said, oh, Russia interfered with the election, so Donald Trump wasn't really the true winner of the presidency. And then all the Republicans said, no, Trump is the winner, you guys are crazy. Now fast forward to 2020, you have the Republicans say, oh, Joe Biden is not the legitimate winner. You had all these dead people voting the election and everything like that. So therefore, Donald Trump is the true presidency. And all the Democrats say, oh, just crazy. no matter who wins, we talk like we said earlier, no matter who wins, you're going to have people that are going to deny it and say, oh, it was rigged, it was fraud on both sides. You can even go back to the election between, what was it, Andrew Jackson and John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay, the corrupt bargain election, where Andrew Jackson said, oh, you guys stole the election from me, you conspired and took it from me, I should have been the rightful president. I mean, this is something that has happened for years and years and years in history, so I don't think this is anything new. The violence you mentioned, on the other hand, that is something that's fairly new. I do think that is to be a valid concern, but I think that after the events of January 6th, that the U.S. government and the Capitol Hill will be well more reinforced and prepared should anything happen.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the corrupt bargain and the conspiracy to steal votes away and influence who gets into power, recently I saw a lot of discussion around Jill Stein and her campaign, and Democratic voters and advocates accusing her side of being Russian-backed, of only trying to just get Trump into presidency, and her side responds that, no, we are trying to represent the constituency of Arab American voters who aren't comfortable voting for either candidate who has expressed support for the atrocities currently ongoing in Gaza. So I think that we are going to see a lot of discourse and likely issues coming out of there if Stein's campaign might lose Harris states like Michigan. I saw was a state that she might very well lose due to their high Arab American demographic.
If Jill Stein wants to really help the Arab American population of the United States, then her and the Green Party should actually run for local office instead of her having to run for president every 4 years. I mean, I only ever hear about Jill Stein when it's a presidential election. I don't hear about any of the members of the Green Party going to any local elections, any statewide elections, not even any congressional seats. It's always president, president, president. And obviously, they're the party that has the closest values to the Democratic Party. Yeah. So they're the party that people are going to say, if I don't really like the Democrats, then I'll just go with the Green Party. And I really think they are a spoiler to the election. Mm-hmm. I think that, like I said, if she really wanted to help the American people, where are you at, Jill Stein? Where are you and your Green Party supporters at in terms of running for local office? Because right now, it just looks like that you want to screw America over and make sure that those who actually want to bring positive change to America can't do their jobs.
Jess, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Dezlen. You know, I think Jill Stein has done very little for the American population and talks too much.
I don't think you're wrong there exactly, but I think that in general, I think we're kind of on the money there. Like, it would be easiest if the Green Party wants to secure a constituency, start off local, mayor positions, town electorates. You can start there without the party affiliation and just build reputation, and then maybe go national, but it might be a little too early. But we are now going to go to a brief break, and then we are going to come back for some final thoughts on this episode. Stay tuned.
Did you know that listening to music, enjoying art, or simply holding hands can boost your cognition? Like me, you want to maintain brain health for as long as possible. I'm Kevin Jameson, President of the Dementia Society of America. Please request our free guide filled with 10 building blocks to better brain health, care planning, and facts about dementia. Visit our website at 1-800-DEMENTIA.org or call us at 1-800-DEMENTIA. You want to live life to the fullest, and our free guide can help.
Think buying fake products is harmless? Think again. Counterfeits are made in unsafe conditions, potentially using hazardous and even lethal ingredients that could harm you and others. Each year, billions of dollars worth of counterfeit products are sold in the U.S. I smell big crime. Think about it. If you don't know where the products came from, how could you know where the money goes? You're smart. Buy smart. Go for real.
Dear University of...
Thank you for your offer
to become student ID number 283471.
While I appreciate your desire
for my impeccable academic record,
I must decline the opportunity
to get a generic degree.
I've decided to tell my story.
To be a student,
not a statistic.
I wish you good luck in the future
as I embark on mine.
Welcome back for our final thoughts on this episode of Exploring Politics. Does anyone want to go first? Are there any takers here?
Jess, would you like to go?
I think the most important thing that we should take from today is that go out and vote. If you're not registered to vote, make sure to check your deadlines. A lot of them have passed already. Early voting has started in many states. Make sure to go out and vote because that 1% will change the election.
I absolutely agree with Jessica, and I think that don't just vote whenever there's a presidential election. Our local, state, and congressional elections are the ones that matter the most, and I believe that my two panelists will also agree with me on that. I mean, as we talked about with the opioid crisis here in Philly, if you want to see actual genuine change, then you have to elect politicians at your local level who can make that change.
Yeah, I think you're completely right in saying that. I think that if you want power and if you want to be recognized as a political force in this country, you have to build that from ground up. And that might start in your local city, in your local town, maybe on a state level. But that power just doesn't come from nowhere. You have to put in the work career long across the national and local levels. And I think that we try to cover all those issues on our show pretty well. But I think that this election, the outcome that we will see, it will be decided by, as you said, a very small percentage of the population. I'm hoping that that outcome can be resolved peacefully. We can have our new president. It can transfer smoothly without any violence or discourse. But who knows after the last couple elections? Any final thoughts before we go to end this episode?
I just think this election is, Peter and I are roommates, we talked about this last night. I think that this election is not the most important election of our time. The next election will be.
And it always will be.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for watching this episode of Exploring Politics. I think we had a very great discussion here, and go out and vote. See you next time.